All right, so I can tell you this year has been by far the most competitive application season I've ever seen. I've talked to numerous admission directors across the country, different schools, big competitive schools, small competitive schools, state schools, just across the board. And everyone has talked about increased applications and how difficult it has been to really get through all of them and decipher, what students are the best fit. But across the board, the one thing I continuously hear is how important extracurricular activities and volunteering are for them. When they're assembling their class, they're looking at putting together a community. And just like the communities you live in, you want people who are going to participate, who are going to add to the community. And that's what they're looking for, are students who they can count on to add to their community. So how do they know you're going to add to the community? Because you did it before. And, in the past, it wasn't such a challenge to get extra opportunities. But also what they saw in the past, and this is a big key thing that has really changed this year, the students that they've accepted all have this one quality. In the past, students were able to sign up for things with very little barrier. They announce at school that Key Club is meeting on Wednesday at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, and boom, you just show up. It's not hard. Well, with a lot of clubs not taking place in school or fewer clubs taking place, students have had a struggle to find those extra things. And the one thing that they've said they've seen across the board in the students they're admitting is initiative. And when they're talking about initiative, they're specifically talking about students who have gone out of their way to actually do something. Students who didn't have just that low barrier to entry. They didn't just sign up at school because it was easy. Instead, they had to make an effort to create something, to find some way to help others. And that's what they're really looking for, is that initiative. So I have a lot of things here to talk about today on how your child can take initiative and do something. They're not looking for students necessarily to have put in a certain number of hours. They're not looking for something that, every week for 4 hours, you're doing the same thing. What they're looking for is that students saw a need and they tried to fill that need for someone else. That's the biggest thing. So let's talk about some of the different ways your children can take advantage of the current climate of, everybody waiting for an opportunity, and how they can instead make an opportunity and really set themselves apart from everyone else. So one of the first things that, what people used to do is, the local senior center, you could go down, you could volunteer, you could do things. And then a lot of senior centers were closed and now they're opening back up. But senior centers, nursing homes, assisted living, they are not seeing people volunteer like they did previously. And in some areas that still may be a challenge. And don't worry, I've got that covered too. But in those areas where you are able to go into a nursing home, an assisted living, a senior center, there are so many ways that your child can make an impact, and they're super easy. So one way is to set up a tech help class. So on Saturday, the 15th of May, we're going to do a tech help class. Everyone can bring in their phones. We can show them how to do different things with their phones. We can show them on the computer that's right there for all of the seniors to use, the best way to send an email. Maybe we can even type the emails for them. 2-3 hours, take 2-3 of your friends, and you just do that. I mean, let's face it, who knows phones better than your kids? Likewise with the computer that's there at the senior center. One of the things that the elderly really love doing is this is something they don't know how to do, but once you show them, they love this. go to maps.google.com and they look at where they grew up and they see how it changed. And they love that. And that's super easy for teenagers to just show them how to do it. Listen to them for a few minutes, talk about, their life back then and so forth. Other great things to do in senior centers are create game nights. So, the first Friday of every month, we're going to do game night. We'll come in and play games, checkers, Monopoly, nice, easy, simple things. It's just more about somebody being there and interacting. If any of you have a budding journalist, someone who loves to write, someone who's interested in maybe pursuing that, a great thing to do is take a notebook and offer to record their history. So tell me, what was your favorite memory growing up? How have things changed? What was your favorite music? Your favorite place to visit? Write all of that down. And then they can make arrangements for the senior center or nursing home to give that to the family, obviously with the person's consent. But that's a great opportunity, because how many times maybe you even have experienced the loss of a loved one and you're, oh, I wish I had that recipe written down. Oh, I wish I knew how Uncle John was related to so-and-so too. And you just don't have that information. So it's a win-win for everyone to do something like that. And it gives them a great opportunity to, on their resume, I created this, and really showcased their journaling talents, but also that they took the initiative to make this happen. They weren't just waiting for someone to pass around a sign-in sheet at school. And things that I'm telling you about are things where I've seen students get into very selective schools because they had projects like these. They showed initiative and really, took that first step. Another great opportunity, I have a student who did this as well. He loved being in the band, plays the saxophone. He learned some older songs, and he literally once a month goes in and he plays for them. He plays music for them, and they love it. But again, it shows initiative. It shows that in his, one of his core traits or characteristics is to give back to others, but also that even though he's not planning to major in music, that is fundamental to who he is. So if he mentions that he might want to be in the school's marching band, it makes sense because, he was doing something like that. If the nursing homes, senior centers, assisted living are not in person still in your area, they're, not willing to have volunteers come in. Another great opportunity is any group that your student belongs to in school, talk to them about doing a create a card group. And so once a month they get together and they create cards that will go out monthly to the senior centers. So, Happy New Year, Happy Groundhog's Day, St. Patrick's Day, Spring Fling, Memorial Day, National Picnic Day. I mean, you can just go on and Google monthly holidays, pick something random and send cards. And so if you get a bunch of people together, I've had students where in their high schools, the art teacher was willing to allow them to use all of the art supplies, including paper and everything, to be able to make cards. So if you have somebody who's crafty, somebody who likes doing that kind of stuff, if that's your child, this is a super easy thing to do. You're meeting in the art room at school and you're doing this for an hour once or twice a month to send these cards out. Makes it easy. The next thing that I'm going to talk about is something that actually I wasn't aware of until probably this past winter, and I've suggested it to a few students. I don't know, not in the same area. They all live all over the country, so not in the same area. But food banks have complained about, or not complained, food banks have said that while they get a lot of, canned beans and rice and potato mix and stuff like that, it's very rare that they get any spices. And when someone is down on their luck and they don't have the money for food, that they're going to a food bank, trust me, they don't have the money to buy spices. There's no salt, pepper, cinnamon, sugar, thyme. There's nothing. in their cabinets like that. So a super easy project is, oh, I belong to the football team. Hey, coach, I want to do a spice drive. Let's have every football player bring in a spice, and we're going to put a box in the, your classroom, and everybody can drop it off there, and I'll take it to the food bank. I mean, that is minimal effort, but it shows initiative. And that's what colleges are really stressing this year, is the kids that they're taking are the kids who did something that someone just didn't say, oh, show up, that they took it upon themselves to create something, to do something different. I have a lot more on this list, but I'm curious if there's any questions or comments about any of those. No, everybody's quiet. Okay. All right. We'll just keep moving along here. The other thing that often people, when they're going to a food bank, will ask about are personal items, things like deodorant, soap, dishwashing detergent, things like that. So again, it doesn't have to be the same old, oh, I did a food drive. It can be, hey, we did, and make a creative name for it. But, we did a personal item drive, because those items are not typically available at a food bank. Oh, wow, you actually showed some forethought. Like, oh, everybody's handing out the cans and making it easy, going into mom's pantry and pulling out the stuff they don't like. But this would take a little bit more thought, because typically at your house, I'm sure you don't have 6 extra deodorants in the cabinet. They're all things that you're actively using. So you'd have to go out of your way a little bit. Shows initiative. Razors, that's another thing they just don't get. And those are expensive when you're going into a store to buy them. Women's shelters. This is, in my opinion, so incredibly needed. Doing a book drive for the kids who are in those shelters with their moms, because again, they just don't have access. Another great opportunity, and depending on where these shelters are and your comfort level and so forth, but do a book drive, and then, one Saturday a month, 6 of my friends and I go and read to kids who are in the shelters, because those children's lives have been really in a state of upheaval. So, when you're thinking about how can I take initiative, think about who you can help. Where do you want to see your efforts go? So that's, again, the book drive is super low barrier, because I'm sure every kid probably has some old books they are willing to part with, and something that they could easily do. But now if you add we're willing to go in and read, once a month or just one time, it's something to put on your resume. Tutoring kids in a shelter, another big thing. Again, something that they don't always have access to and certainly could use. Chances are when they were put into the shelter with a parent, they had to change schools. So they may not even know where to go for resources in the new school that they're at. In a men's shelter, the number one item requested in a men's shelter, socks. So again, you create a Happy Feet drive, like put a cool name to it, and you get everybody to donate socks for the men's shelter. I had a student previously who I can tell you academically did not have the best grades, but she made up for it in the work she did. She decided one year in the fall, when up here in Cleveland in the fall, when coats first hit the racks, like Christmas, winter's coming, she was buying a new coat, and she took it home, put it in her closet, and was complaining to her mom about how stuffed their coat closet was. And she said, we shouldn't throw these away. We should give them to someone. And then she said to her mom later, you know what, can I put on social media, on my Facebook page and stuff like that, can I put out there that we're going to collect coats to give to people? Do you mind if they drop them off at the house? So she did it. Then her mom started promoting it. Her sister, who is a couple of years older than her, started promoting it. By December 1st, they had over 700 coats that they were able to take to local shelters and drop off. I mean, that's huge initiatives. They actually borrowed someone's truck and they still had every car filled to the brim with bags of coats. And it was work on her part. That one's not as low barrier as you might initially think, because they went through every coat to make sure there wasn't stuff in the pockets, that they were clean, that they were in good condition. So she did a lot of work. But she started doing that when she was a freshman in high school, and she has done it every year since, and she's currently a freshman in college. And again, she got into a school that, to be quite honest, I was like, oh, I don't know with your grades, but let's give it a shot. And that was one of the big things that pushed her over the edge, is her initiative and her willingness to help others. I have a student who has done backpack drives. And now this student is really, talk about initiative. She actually reached out to local stores and said, what can you donate? We're donating these backpacks to, and she named, an inner city school in her area that is definitely, doesn't have the resources. Initially, she just did it for their second grade class, like second graders should have all these tools. And, but she had Target and, oh, not the dollar store, Big Lots, like donate extra stuff that wasn't selling or had been in their back room or that they were going to send to some wholesaler. They were able to donate that stuff. So don't, think that you have to do everything yourself. I mean, involve other people in the community. Show that you can collaborate with others to get something done. That's a big deal. But they filled second graders backpacks more than enough. And actually she's expanding it this year. They're hoping to be able to do the entire elementary school, like for this coming fall. And she realized that it's way easier to get stuff at the end of the back to school season instead of during it, which is what she did the first time. So she's got actually a lot more to work with. I have a student in New Jersey who donated thousands, all of his Legos. He asked friends to get rid of their Legos to a local library. And then he talked with, in conversation, I want to donate these and who would be able to use the Legos. And like, do you have a program here? Could you do a program here? And they actually did a program for students with special needs to come in on a Saturday and build Legos. So they're practicing those fine motor skills. And so if you have a budding engineer, someone who, really likes putting together Legos still, but knows that you have no need for them, that's an opportunity just to do something different and make it worthwhile for the community. You're helping someone else, and it's with stuff that you would have thrown out otherwise. I have a student in Alabama. Love this kid. He loves physics, loves engineering, all of that. And I was, he's a senior currently. He got accepted to all of his schools. But I was on him last year. I'm like, you got to do something different. We got to create something. We got to do something. And so we talked about his interest and what he wants to do. And I said, why don't you do, kids haven't had summer programs. Kids haven't been in person. They haven't been able to do things. Why don't you create like a little Saturday summer camp and do all sorts of physics stuff, get the volcano that's going to blow up, like do the egg drop, like just like whatever you can think of that would be fun, super easy to do. And so, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Well, how do I get people to come? I go, contact like your third grade teacher, your fourth grade teacher, your fifth grade, like whoever, whatever age group you want to work with, like contact them and ask them if they'll send it out. So he was so hesitant, like, no one's going to show up. This is stupid. What if everybody thinks this is dumb? Like, what am I going to do? So he enlisted a friend who also had a younger brother. So that little brother could ask all of his friends. And they thought there might be 3 kids there. They ended up with over 20. They registered in advance, so they knew that. But like literally, they had initially thought, we'll have 3 kids. They ended up with over 20, rave reviews. I mean, fabulous feedback from the kids, the parents, everything. They did cool experiments. They did it at a park, outside. He got a couple, when he realized he was going to have 20, he had a couple other friends come, keep them all corralled and everything. He said it was great. And if you could have seen the pride, him beaming afterwards, after so much of the self-doubt of, no one's going to show up. What if this is a failure? What am I going to do? And I'm like, no, just do it. Just do it. Like, you're not doing anything else that Saturday. You got it scheduled. Like, just do it. And it was awesome. And, you know, seeing stuff like that, like how he went from, you know, fear to getting it done, I think it benefited him just as much as it benefited those kids in trying to instill a love of science and physics. And, you know, everybody talks about physics like it's so scary and so hard, and it is a difficult class, but there's fun things you can do with it and showing that fun side so kids want to do it. But I think he benefited just as much from having done it. And your kids will too, when they're taking initiative and seeing, like, I don't have to wait for someone to get me involved. I don't have to wait to make a change. I have another girl who, her and her sister founded a program. It's called Book. And it's, oh, I'm gonna mess this up, but Books, something opportunity for kids. And they have donated, I think they're over 500,000 books to local schools, underprivileged schools over the last 3 years. And in her college applications, when they asked about, like, you know, why this school or whatever, you know, there were schools where she said, hey, based on the demographic outlying the school, I think it's a perfect fit for me to continue my book program in this county. And again, into programs, honors colleges, in-state tuition for out of state. And I know that that book program was very instrumental in doing that. If your child is not about volunteering, not about, you know, like, oh my gosh, this is so stupid, why do I have to do this? And they're really into sports, have them run a sports camp, a one-day sports camp. Super easy. They could make it like a mini college combine. Like, you know, what fourth grader wouldn't want to think like, oh, I did the 40 in this, or I can jump this high, like whatever. So like, it's take their interest and have them take initiative with that interest. I've had students teach music lessons, or another skill, crocheting, knitting, painting. There's a lot they can do with what they already have that, again, are kind of low barriers to entry. I had another student this year got into an incredibly selective school, and he also had a love of physics. And I told him he needed to start a YouTube channel, and he needed to record himself talking about different phenomena in the world of physics and make it very accessible for younger kids, you know, inspire them and so forth. And he did. And let me tell you, he was terrified. It was never good enough. And we edited his videos for him. And then he's like, okay, yeah, I guess they are good enough. But, you know, that self-criticism always plays in there. But again, that shows initiative. I created a YouTube channel. I'm showing all of this stuff. Not like the YouTubers who are doing crazy stuff. That's not really going to get you into schools. But doing something to, you know, inspire someone else, help someone else, all about it. I'm going to show you a couple things in a minute. I want to go over a couple other things. This was really, I have a student who, again, got into a selective school, had good grades, good test scores, but still, I think that the school that he got into actually had 4 times the number of early action applications this year than normal. So to get in early action was a big, huge deal this year, especially because they only take 2,000 kids as freshmen. And when you're competing with so many more applicants, it's a big deal. Anyways, when COVID happened, you know, the nightly news, all about first responders and how they're dealing with this and everything. And school closed down, and they had a day where they were going to come back and take their stuff out of their lockers. And when he went back to take stuff out of his lockers at school, there's a restaurant nearby that everybody went to. It was a little Mexican burrito, you know, that kind of, not Chipotle, but kind of Chipotle-ish place. And he went there and it was closed. and he knew they had another location, and he reached out and he's like, are you guys permanently closed? Like, what are you doing? You know, like, I want to be able to come there. And they said, we may have to close both of our locations because of business, because restaurants were closed in our area. And so they were only doing takeout. And he said, there's just not enough demand to support that. So this kid, wheels turning, decided to contact all of his friends. He's like, we need to keep this burrito place open near campus. So let's all donate money. We're going to go in, we're going to buy, like, they ended up collecting like more than $3,500. They bought $3,500 worth of food and delivered it to hospitals for first responders. So it was a win-win. They're helping the small business out, because I'm sure the small business loved that $3,500 cash infusion into their business. And they were also feeding nurses and everything. And so weeks later, they ran it again and did it again. And that place is still open, and restaurants are open now. So, but I thought, I had nothing to do with that idea. And let me tell you, I thought that was brilliant. I mean, just brilliant. I think it's really important if your child belongs to any kind of team, if they're in the musical, if they are in the band, like, you have a whole group of people who also need to put stuff on their resumes. You create it, get them all involved. Like, hey, I need everybody to donate. I need everybody to do this. I need, you know, we're going to do this drive. We're going to do this. And really enlist teachers too. Teachers are great at spreading the word, at also, you know, donating, things like that. Super important. Speaking of, if you have someone who is very into theater and musicals, things like that, that's another great opportunity where you pick a, you know, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, whatever, and you offer to come in and help those kids put on a play. You know, one day, start to finish. We're going to be talking about the play, make it super simple. You know, maybe bring in some costumes from the high school, something that they can retrofit on the spot, and make it really cool for kids who may never get that opportunity to have that in their school, be able to participate in something like that. And I can tell you, most elementary schools are dying for things to do with kids, since they've been so, you know, shut down and working on Zoom, things like that. Now that they're back in person, they're loving the opportunities for kids to get more interaction. So that's a great opportunity. Okay, so a couple things I'm going to show you here, because I think there's other opportunities besides just the volunteer work for kids to help themselves stand out. And hang on one second, because I'm putting these into my browser so I can share my screen. All right. So in addition to the types of volunteer things we talked about, the types of extra curriculars that you can do to you know, try to inspire other people, to try to add value to other people. So I don't know if anybody's familiar with this website, Fiverr, but if you do have a child who loves design, loves opportunities like that, Fiverr is a great place for them to sell their work. And super low barrier to entry. You literally can go on here if your kid is good at making designs, and they can sell their work at a minimal cost. But they're also building a portfolio. It's just a different opportunity that most students are not aware of. So it's Fiverr with an extra R at the end.com. And if you are, well, where would my kid be able to do that type of work? Canva has a free version in addition to a paid version where you can go in and make designs. This is so easy to use. Even I can do it. but my assistants are really fabulous at it. But this is an opportunity if you have a child who's really interested in art and design and has a creative flair. I mean, Canva has the free version. Go into Canva, have them design things. If they're good at it, have them post it on Fiverr. See if anybody wants them to commission, a piece of work, whether it's a logo design, a brochure, something else. It's an opportunity to go above and beyond what everyone else is doing. And that's what admissions is looking for. It's all of the above and beyond. So there's also educational opportunities for students. edX is one of my favorites. Let's say that I wanted to learn about physics. So I could go in here and I could take AP Physics at Rice. I could take pre-university physics at Delft. I could take quantum mechanics at Georgetown. I could take mechanics part 1 at Rice. It's amazing the things you can do. And if you look at the classes, estimate takes about 5 weeks, 6 to 8 hours, but it's self-paced. You don't have 6 hours? Great. Let it take you 10 weeks. Who cares? Choose your session. The course is free. Only if you want a certificate at the end do you need to pay for this. If you're putting extra classes on there that you took at well-respected colleges, again, great opportunities for you to do that. Let's look at data science here. This is Coursera. Actually, I like Coursera a little bit better than I like edX, but same type of thing. So IBM Data Science, it's a beginner program. Google Data Analytics. Oh, I took a course through Google Data Analytics. I mean, that's not something offered at the high school. You definitely went out of your way. Again, if you notice, it says shareable certificate, 100% online, flexible schedule, beginner level, approximately 6 months to complete, but it doesn't matter. There's no pressure. You get into a class that was free and you don't like it, move on. A great opportunity for students to try different things. And I want to say they even have some, let me see. I thought one of them had things even about baking, like some gastro food type of thing, but it clearly not Coursera. But obviously opportunities for students to take a look at a lot of different things that they've not been exposed to, making themselves that much more well-rounded, opportunities to do things. Often people think that extracurriculars or volunteer opportunities happen one of 2 ways. Either it's super easy, hey, we're all going to go volunteer here, and your kid just joins the group, or it's super hard. I got to create a 501c3 and I've got to do all this stuff and I have to have a business plan. It doesn't need to be any of that. It can be right in the middle where you're showing initiative, you're creating something, and you're doing it to help others. And it's not as hard as a 501c3, and it's not quite as easy as just joining the rest of the group, because again, that initiative is super important. So I will stop share now. And all righty, so a couple other things that were on the list here. Let's see here. Okay, any other opportunities, when you hear about something? Obviously, what's going on in Ukraine right now, there are a lot of organizations taking donations, things like that. Those are things that obviously I would tell you to vet those opportunities before you have your child collect money to send it somewhere or collect items to send somewhere. But those are opportunities too, to start something, to help others. Really important. But again, we got to think about our own communities as well, because as gas prices go up, as food prices continue to go up, you know, there are a lot of people feeling that impact. And those are people that we can encourage our children to reach out and help them through food banks and shelters and different opportunities like that. So, any questions? Okay, did we get some good information here? Are you surprised that there's like things that are easy to do that would set your child apart? You know, let them take initiative. A couple other things I'll tell you. I had a kid, well, I actually had a kid, he worked at a car dealership, and his job at the car dealership, because he's super techie, was to explain all of the features to the people who bought those cars. How do they connect their phone? How do they get the maps on the screen? You know, things like that. And I said, well, gosh, you're so good at it. I go, you need to start a business. And so we helped him create a Facebook page. We helped him create a website. And he marketed that he would help people connect like all the little things in their smart home that weren't talking to each other. So they had a smart TV and they had an Alexa, and they weren't merging, they weren't talking to each other, they weren't getting the maximum potential out of their smart devices. And so he started doing that. And so with the Facebook page, obviously his mom started, you know, sharing any post he made posts about, you know, tech things, common things he saw. I think his first post was about how some setting in your Apple Watch, and how, oh, if you're experiencing this problem, it's this setting, here's how you fix it. So he was giving good, actionable advice like once a week, sharing out these posts. His mom was actively involved. We also shared his posts since we helped him create that Facebook page. And again, you know, into programs that he really wanted to be into. Can I say that all of these things are the only reason they got in? No, but I can tell you, talking with college directors, they are looking for initiative really high on the list this year. Really high on the list to really separate candidates. So what questions?
I have a question, Kelly. So
Yeah.
what is the best way for a student applicant to demonstrate or explain to the school that they've done this? If it's not their essay, because I've heard that essays are not the proper vehicle to expand on your activities, and the application otherwise gives you some space just to list your activities with not much space to provide detail. How do you expand on that, on your experience, to really convey the initiative, to convey, you know, that you're empathetic, etc.?
Exactly. No, great question. So yes, the application has 10 lines. Your child should have 10 things, for sure. But we always create an additional resume for students so that it can expand, you know, go into more detail, a lot more specifics on that resume. We encourage students to give that resume to their recommender so that the recommender can write about it as well. Because now there's somebody else talking about what you did and how amazing you are. The other thing is, when appropriate, if your kid is doing I don't know, the college combine idea for fourth graders, like have a website. And I mean, again, that's something that we do for students to be able to showcase their stuff. So now they have this website, because now when you list it, you're also including the link. They can go check it. It is proof, visual proof, like, oh, they even have a website. Wow, they did this. So that colleges know that they were really committed to these ideas. Oftentimes, colleges will have additional essays. Tell us about one of the biggest challenges you faced. Okay, well, if you created something, you know, overcoming my fear that people wouldn't show up for this, even though I really wanted to, you know, express like how interesting physics is, to not be afraid of science, that we use it every day and things like that. Now you're not just talking about, look at me, I'm so great, I did all these things. You're showing a vulnerability. So if you've created something or you did something unique, when you talk about challenges, that's a great place to put it in an essay, but never the Common App essay or the initial essay.
Thank you. That's helpful. I
Other,
guess I have one follow-up question to that, I'm sorry, which would just be that you mentioned the recommenders, right? So our understanding is that for juniors, they should be approaching whoever, teachers, coaches, whomever.
no coach,
Um,
no coach.
okay. So let's in my daughter's case, it would be teachers.
Right.
She should approach them before the end of this school year
Yes.
so that the teachers have the materials and everything, and the request has been made before the summer. And,
Yes.
so you're not bombarding the teacher right when everybody goes back to school to
Yes.
get, right?
100%. You are so spot on. Teachers are overwhelmed at the beginning of the school year. Some kids are coming into class days late, schedule changes have been made, they've got a whole new group of students, they may be dealing with passing out new materials, things like that. So the last thing on their mind at that point is to write letters of recommendation. But it's proven that early applications get the best decision. So how do you send your application early? And the college to which you submitted is then you're getting messages. We still don't have your recommendations. We still don't have your transcripts, which is not a big, huge deal in truth, but it is a pain for students. It's scary. It's anxiety laced. So we encourage students to ask their recommenders before the end of this year, provide them with all that information so that the teacher can be proactive and opt to do some recommendations over the summer when they have more time. If they get to a point, most teachers, in all honesty, have a template for recommendations. And when they get to that point where, oh my gosh, I still have 30 to do and I'm running out of time, let me tell you, your kid's getting a template recommendation, and that's terrible because admission sees those and they're like, oh, teacher didn't even care enough to write a personal one. So you want to be early on asking for recommendations. And so having something in your, and maybe it's something you're working on, you can still put it on your resume that you're working on it. And that's okay. And that way the teacher can at least discuss it.
Okay, that's helpful. Thanks.
Sure. Other questions? Anyone?
A question.
Sure.
Kind of going back to what you said before, did you say like to not have coaches give recommendations?
Yeah, so most admission people, the sentiment is, we're looking to assemble a class who is going to do well academically in school. We need to make sure they're going to get through first semester and be eligible for next semester. And parents aren't going to say, oh my gosh, like your grades are terrible. You can just come home and go to the community college if those are the grades you're getting. Because new kids are coming in for second semester. So when colleges are picking their class, they're really thinking who academically has demonstrated that they will perform well here without supervision. So we really try to not have coaches unless the coach has taught them in an academic subject. And that's what they're really looking for. They're looking for academics because you can be a great player, great teammate, and you can struggle in math and English, which you're going to have to take. And so that's nice that you're a great teammate, but if you're not coming here to play, we really don't care. That's the sentiment. So in order of, if you are really shooting for a reach school, the best recommendation you could ever get is the superintendent from your school district. So let's just say, for instance, you live in the neighborhood where your superintendent lives. You are on a personal basis that you casually speak. Oh, hey, how you doing? Oh yeah, this is good, whatever. And you're going for a reach school, you're asking the superintendent. I've leveraged that, works every time. If you work for the principal, you aid in the principal's office. And here's why. The superintendent might write one every year. If you're the one, it's a big deal. The principal might write 5 every year. If you know the principal well enough and it's not like an obscure ask the principal. Other than that, you're asking teachers. English teachers tend to write the best letters. They put the most drama and emotion into them. Math teachers often are very cut and dry. We're talking grades, scores, they're very cut and dried. I'm not saying don't ask a math teacher, but what I'm saying is you might want to mix. If you're asking at least 2 people, you might want one of each. And again, there's all of the other subjects. Obviously, your history classes, your science classes, and so forth, by all means. Other questions? Somebody just unmuted. Jean, you have a question?
Yeah, so on the recommendations, is it preferred that it's a core teacher that gives those? What about like elective teachers?
It depends. So if the elective is business and they're applying for a business major, that works.
Okay,
If the elective is ceramics and they are going to be in business, maybe not. So, just as long as it's kind of well thought out and planned, core teachers are preferred by admissions. Okay, well, I hope that was helpful. I hope that everyone was able to get some ideas on things that your child could do super easy, super low barrier to entry, but demonstrates that initiative. And that's just so important. And I think if you talk to your child and you're like, oh, well, you have to do something shows initiative, your kid is going to be like, I have no clue what you're talking about. Because like, how would they're told what to do all the time. Like they have no autonomy for the most part, show up at practice here, sit in your seat, raise your hand to use the restroom. They really don't have a lot of autonomy. So helping them with these ideas, like, look, this is all you have to do a spice drive. How easy is this? Like, text your friend right now, ask him if he can bring pepper to like class tomorrow. Like, it's not hard. Someone asked too, how many recommenders do you recommend? So every school has a different criteria. There are some schools, it is 0. So your application has to be super spot on with everything that you want to demonstrate for them because no one else is talking about it. And then there are some that will allow you up to 10. There are some that will allow, if you work, that you could get your boss to write a recommendation and so forth, or the pastor of your church. But those are case by case. As a general rule of thumb, the majority are 2 recommenders. Always have a 3rd as a backup because you just never know what teacher may suddenly be on maternity leave, change schools, something like that. And then you're all of a sudden behind the 8 ball asking with 60 of your friends, the same teacher. So yes, this is being recorded. It will not be available though till at least Monday. Any other questions? No? Okay, great. Well, I hope everybody got something to take away from that. And, good luck. If anybody needs more help or they feel like their kid has a great idea, but their kid needs more help to execute, maybe with the creation of that website, how to market whatever they're trying to do or get more buy-in, we do that for students all the time. Don't hesitate to reach out. We can schedule a quick call and see, how we could best support your child in getting their project done to make their dreams come true. All right.